Good afternoon, Doc and classmates. I'm Pauline Ko, your presenter for today. I will be discussing strategy, analysis, and choice. Under strategy, analysis, and choice, I'll be discussing the following topics. I'll describe the three-stage framework for choosing among alternative strategies. And then I'll explain how to develop a SWOT matrix, PACE matrix, BCG matrix, IE matrix, and QSPM. Strategy analysis and choice seek to determine alternative courses of action that could best enable the firm to achieve its mission and objectives. It largely involves making subjective decisions based on objective information. The firm's first strategies, objectives, and mission, coupled with external and internal audit information, provide a basis for generating and evaluating feasible alternative strategies. Strategists never consider all feasible alternatives that could benefit the firm because there are an infinite numbers of possible actions and an infinite number of ways to implement those actions. Therefore, a manageable set of most attractive alternative strategies must be developed. Identifying and evaluating alternative strategies should involve many of the managers and employees who assembled to create the mission and vision. Representatives from each department and division of the firm should be included in this process. Involvement provides the best opportunity for managers and employees to gain an understanding of what the firm is doing and why, and to become committed to helping the firm accomplish its objectives. The strategies should be ranked in order of attractiveness by all participants that will result into a prioritized list of best strategies that reflects the collective wisdom of the group. Nature of strategy, analysis, and choice. First is you have to establish long-term objectives that are aligned with the company's mission and vision. Establishing objectives helps drive your company toward continued success and remains a benchmark even during time of struggle. A company objective is a goal or outcome that you want your organization to achieve. Next is generating alternative strategies. These are important for our organization because the market keeps changing. In order for an organization to stay successful, it needs to keep changing its ways and building new strategies to counter new behaviors. Provide alternative strategies derived from the mission, vision, objectives, internal and external audit, and past successful strategies. Lastly, selecting the strategies to pursue. As I've earlier mentioned, strategies never consider all feasible alternatives that could benefit the company because there are infinite number of possible actions and ways to implement those actions or strategies. Therefore, management would just select the most attractive and beneficial to the company at the moment. Topic number 1 will cover the three-stage framework for choosing among the alternative strategies. The strategy formulation analytical framework has three stages. Stage number 1, which is the input stage, it has three tools. So we have EFE, CPM, and IFE. The second stage is the matching stage, which uses 5 techniques including SWOT, SPACE, BCG, IE, and Grand Strategy Matrix. The last stage is the decision stage, which has only one tool, the QSPM. First stage is the input stage. Stage 1 summarizes the basic input information needed to formulate strategies. The input tools required strategies to quantify subjectivity during early stages of the strategy formulation process. Making small decisions in the input matrices regarding the relative importance of external and internal factors allows the strategies to more effectively generate and evaluate alternative strategies. Good intuitive judgment is always needed in determining appropriate weight and ratings. The next stage is the matching stage. It focuses upon generating feasible alternative strategies by aligning key external and internal factors. Tools used in this stage rely upon information derived from the input stage to match external opportunities and threats with internal strengths and weaknesses. Matching external and internal critical success factors is the key to effectively generate feasible alternative strategies. The five techniques include SWOT, SPACE, BCG, IE, and Grand Strategy Matrix. Matching sample. This example portrays simple one-to-one matching. In most situations, external and internal relationships are more complex, and the matching requires multiple alignment for each strategy generated. Any organization, whether military, product-oriented, service-oriented, governmental, or even athletic, must develop and execute good strategies to win. A good offense without a good defense, or vice versa, usually leads to defeat. Developing strategy that use strengths to capitalize on opportunities could be considered an offense, whereas strategies designed to improve upon weaknesses while avoiding threats could be termed defensive. Every organization has some external opportunities and threats and internal strengths and weaknesses that can be aligned to formulate feasible alternative strategies. The last stage is decision stage. It involves a single analytical technique, and it objectively indicates which alternative strategies are best. The tool that is being used in this is the QSPM tool. Topic number 2, I'll be discussing SWOT, SPACE, BCG, IE, and QSPM. First tool that I'll be discussing is SWOT. SWOT stands for Strength, Weaknesses, Opportunity, and Threats. It is a strategic planning technique used to help a person or organization identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats related to business competition or planning. It also helps the organization develop a full awareness of all the factors involved in making a business decision. When is the time to, or the best time to perform SWOT? You can employ a SWOT analysis before you commit to any sort of company action, whether you are exploring new initiatives, revamping internal policies, considering opportunities to pivot, or altering a plan midway through its execution. Sometimes it's wise to perform a general SWOT analysis just to check on the current landscape of your business so you can improve business operations as needed. The analysis can show you the key areas where your organization is performing optimally, as well as which operations need adjustment. So, strength is a characteristic of a business which give it advantages over its competitor. The weaknesses are characteristics of a business which make it disadvantageous relative to competitors. Opportunities is an element in a company's external environment that allow it to formulate and implement strategies to increase profitability, while threats is elements in the external environment that could endanger the integrity and profitability of the business. SWOT matrix is composed of 9 cells. There are 4 key factor cells, 4 strategy cells, and 1 cell that is always left blank. The SWOT matrix is an important matching tool that helps managers develop 4 types of strategies. First is SO, which is Strength Opportunity Strategy. WO, Weaknesses Opportunities Strategy. ST, Strength Threat Strategy. WT is Weaknesses Threat strategies. Matching key external and internal factor is the most difficult part of developing a SWOT matrix and requires good judgment. And there is no one best set of matches. SO strategies use a firm's internal strength to take advantage of external opportunities. All managers would like organizations to be in position in which internal strength can be used to make advantage of external trends and events. When a firm has major weaknesses, it will strive to overcome them and make them strengths. When an organization faces major threats, it will seek to avoid them to concentrate on opportunities. WO is a strategy aiming at improving internal weaknesses by taking advantage of external opportunities. Sometimes key external opportunities exist, but the firm has internal weaknesses that prevent it from exploiting those opportunities. ST is strategies use a firm's strength to avoid or reduce the impact of external threats. And WT strategies are defensive tactics directed at reducing internal weaknesses and avoiding external threats. There are 8 steps involved in conducting SWOT analysis. First is list the firm's key external opportunities. Second is list the firm's key external threats. Number 3 is list the firm's key internal strengths. Number 4, list the firm's key internal weaknesses. Number 5, match the internal strength with external opportunities and record the resultant SO strategy in the appropriate cell. Number 6 is match internal weaknesses and external weaknesses. Number 7 is match internal strength and external threats. And number 8 is match internal weaknesses and external threats. This tool is to generate feasible alternative strategies, not to select or determine which strategies are best. Not all of strategies developed in the SWOT matrix, therefore, will be selected for implementation. Although SWOT is used widely in strategic planning, the analysis does have some limitation, which are the following. Number 1, SWOT does not show how to achieve a competitive advantage, so it must not be an end in itself. The matrix should be the starting point for a discussion on how proposed strategies could be implemented, as well as cost-benefit considerations that ultimately could lead to competitive advantage. Number 2, SWOT is a static assessment or a snapshot in time. A SWOT matrix can be like studying a single frame of a motion picture where you see the lead characters and the setting but have no clue as to the plot. You may have to create several SWOT analyses together with a dynamic and changing business environment. Number 3, SWOT analysis may lead the firm to overemphasize a single internal or external factor in formulating strategies. There are interrelationships among the key internal and external factors. Number 4 is it doesn't provide solutions or offer alternative decisions. It can generate a lot of information, but not all will be useful. Next tool is SPACE Matrix, which stands for Strategic Position and Action Evaluation. It is a strategic management tool that focuses on strategy formulation, especially as related to the competitive position of an organization. It used to determine what type of strategy a company should undertake. It has a 4-quadrant framework indicating whether aggressive, conservative, defensive, or competitive strategies are most appropriate for a given organization. The SPACE matrix can be used as a basis for another analysis such as the SWOT analysis, BCG matrix model, industry analysis, or assessing strategic alternatives or the IE matrix. Here is an example of a space matrix. The axis of the space matrix represents two internal dimensions, the FP and the CP, but sometimes it is called FS or CA. So FP means financial position, FS means financial strength, which is the same. And for competitive position, it is also called competitive advantage. The next two external dimension is the SP, the stability position or the environmental stability, and another one is the industry position or industrial strength. These four factors are perhaps the most important determinants of an organization's overall strategic position. In developing a space matrix, you should have the following factors with you: the IFI and EFE result from the input stage, and then the FP, the financial position, the CP, competitive position, the SP, the stability position, and the IP, industrial position. The steps required to develop a space matrix are as follows. Number 1 is select a set of variables to define financial position, competitive position, stability position, and industry position. There's a sample below showing the sample factors per variables. And number 2 is to rate individual factor using rating systems specified to each dimension. Assign a numerical value or rate individual factors using rating system. Rating from 1 plus 1 worst to plus 7 as best to each of the variables that make up the FP and IP dimensions. And then assign the same numerical value range for the variable that make up the SP and CP dimension. On FP and CP axis, make comparison to competitors. On IP and SP axis, make comparison to other industries. So number 3 is to compute an average score for FP, CP, SP, and IP. So as shown here, the table shows the sample of rating the factors and computing the average score for the variables. Number 4 is to plot the average score for FP, CP, SP, and IP on the appropriate axis in the space. So from the table shown earlier, the result of the scores are plotted here in the axis. In number 5, add 2 scores on the x-axis and plot the resultant point in x, and the 2 scores on the y-axis and plot the resultant point in y. So as shown on the graph, the yellow dot are the scores added for both x and y. And lastly, the green dot is draw a directional vector from the origin of the space matrix through the next intersection point. The green one is the suggested strategy type. Depending on the type of organization, numerous variables could make up each of the dimensions represented on the axis of the space matrix. Factors that were included earlier in the firm EFE and IFE matrices should be considered in developing a space matrix. The space matrix tells us that our company should pursue an aggressive strategy type with this sample. The next tool that I'll be discussing is the BCG matrix or the Boston Consulting Group. It is a simple corporate planning tool to assess a company's position in terms of its product range. It is also called as growth shared matrix. It assists multi-divisional firm in formulating strategies. It analyzes autonomous division or the business portfolio. It focuses on relative market share, position, and market industry growth rate. What is a relative market share position? It is defined as the ratio of divisions' owned market share or revenues in a particular industry to the market share or revenues held by the largest rival firm in that industry. Let's discuss further the quadrant definitions. So first quadrant is the question mark. Division in quadrant 1 have a low relative market share position, yet they compete in a high growth industry. Generally, these firms' cash needs are high and their cash generation is low. These businesses are called question mark because the organization must decide whether to strengthen them by pursuing an intensive strategy or to sell them. Quadrant number 2 is the stars. They represent the organization's best long-run opportunities for growth and profitability. Divisions with a high relative market share and a high industry growth rate should receive substantial investment to maintain or strengthen their dominant position. Forward, backward, horizontal integration, market penetration, market development, and product development are appropriate strategies for this division to consider. The third quadrant is the cash cow. This division position in quadrant 3 have a high relative market share position but compete in low growth industry. Called cash cow because they generate cash in excess of their needs. They are often milked. Many of today's cash cow were yesterday's star. Cash cow division should be managed to maintain their strong position for as long as possible. Product development or diversification may be attractive strategies for strong cash cow. However, as a cash cow division becomes weak, retrenchment can become more appropriate. And the last quadrant is the dogs. This quadrant or this division of the organization have a low relative market share position and compete in slow or no market growth industry. They are dogs in the firm's portfolio. Because of their weak internal and external position, these businesses are often liquidated, divested, or trimmed down through retrenchment. When a division first becomes a dog, retrenchment can be the best strategy to pursue because many dogs have bounced back after strenuous asset and cost reduction to become viable, profitable divisions. This is an example of a BGC matrix. In the illustration, it has 5 divisions with annual sales ranging from $5,000 to $60,000. Division 1 has the greatest sales volume, so the circle represents that division is the largest one in the matrix. While Division 5 has the lowest revenue, as also shown on the illustration. The pie slice within the circle reveals the percent of corporate profit contributed by each division. So for division number 1, it has high percentage profit, around 39%. So it has a high pie division. Also shown, division 1 contributes the highest profit percentage, that is 39%. Notice in diagram that division 1 is considered as star. Division 2 is considered as question mark. Division 3 is also a question mark. Division 4 is a cash cow. And Division 5 is a dog. The next tool is IE matrix, or it stands for internal-external matrix. This matrix is positions an organization various divisions in a 9-cell display, which is illustrated in the figure. The IE matrix is similar to the BCG matrix in that both tool involve plotting organization divisions in a schematic diagram. It is why they are both called portfolio matrix. Also, the size of each circle represents the percentage sales contribution of each division, and pie slice reveals the percentage profit contribution of each division in both the BCG and the IE matrix. But there are some important differences between the BCG matrix and IE matrix. First, the axes are different. Also, the IE requires more information about division than BCG matrix. Furthermore, the strategic implication of each matrix are different. For this reason, strategists in multi-divisional firms often develop both the BCG matrix and the IE matrix in formulating alternative strategies. A common practice is to develop BCG matrix and an IE matrix for the present, and then develop projected matrices to reflect expectations of the future. The IE matrix is based on two key dimensions: the IFE total weighted scores on the x-axis and the EFE total weighted score on the y-axis. Recall that each division of an organization should construct an IFE matrix and EFE matrix for its part of organization. The total weighted score derived from the division allow construction of the corporate level IE matrix. On the x-axis of the IE matrix, an IFE total weighted score of 1 to 1.99 represents a weak internal position, 2 to 2.99 considered as average, and a score of 3 to 4 is strong. Similarly, on the y-axis, an EFE total weighted score of 1 to 1.99 is considered low, a score of 2 to 2.99 is medium, and a score of 3 to 4 is high. The IE matrix can be divided into three major regions that have different strategy implications. First, the prescription of division that fall into cell 1, 2, or 4 can be described as grow and build. Intensive strategies can be most appropriate for this division. Second division that fall into cell 3, 5, and 7 can be managed best with hold and maintain strategies. Market penetration and product development are two commonly employed strategies for this type of divisions. Third, a common prescription for division that fall into cell 6, 8, and 9 is harvest or divest. Successful organizations are able to achieve a portfolio of businesses positioned in or around cell in the IE matrix. Sample shown in the illustration, which depicts an organization composed of 4 divisions, are indicated by the position of the circles. Grow and build strategies are appropriate for Division 1, Division 2, and 3. Division 4 is a candidate for harvest or divest. Division 2 contributes the largest percentage of sales and thus is represented by the largest circle. Division 1 contributes the greatest proportion of total profit. It has the largest percentage of pie slice. In addition to SWOT, SPACE, BCG, and IE matrix, the Grand Strategy Matrix has become a popular tool for formulating alternative strategies. All organizations can be positioned in one of the Grand Strategy Matrix for strategy quadrants. Affirmed divisions likewise could be positioned. As illustrated, the Grand Strategy Matrix is based on two evaluating dimensions: the competitive position and market growth. An industry whose annual growth in sales exceed 5% could be considered to have rapid growth, Appropriate strategies for an organization to consider are listed in the sequential order of attractiveness in each quadrant of the matrix. Firms located in quadrant 1 of the grand strategy matrix are in an excellent strategy position. For these firms, continued concentration on current markets and products is an appropriate strategy. It is unwise for a quadrant 1 firm to shift notably from its established competitive advantage. When a quadrant 1 organization has excessive resources, then backward, forward, or horizontal integration may be effective strategies. When a quadrant 1 firm is too heavily committed to single product, then related diversification may reduce the risk associated with a narrow product line. Quadrant 1 firms can afford to take advantage of external opportunities in several areas. They can take risks aggressively when necessary. Firms positioned in Quadrant 2 need to evaluate their present approach to the marketplace seriousness. Although their industry is growing, they are unable to compete effectively, and they need to determine why the firm's current approach is ineffective and how the company can best change to improve its competitiveness. Because Quadrant 2 firms are in a rapid market growth industry, an intensive strategy is usually the best or the first option that should be considered. However, if the firm is lacking in distinctive competence or competitive advantage, then horizontal integration is often a desirable alternative. As a last resort, divestiture or liquidation should be considered. Quadrant 3 organizations compete in slow growth industries and have weak competitive position. These firms must make some drastic changes quickly to avoid further decline and possible liquidations. Extensive cost and asset reduction should be pursued first. An alternative strategy is to shift resources away from the current business into different areas or diversify. If all else fails, the final option for Quadrant 3 businesses are diventures or liquidations. Finally, Quadrant 4 businesses have strong competitive position that are in slow growth industry. These firms have the strength to launch diversified programs into more promising growth areas. Quadrant 4 firms have characteristically high cash flow levels and limited internal growth needs and often can pursue related or unrelated diversification successfully. Quadrant 4 firms also may pursue joint ventures. I've completed discussing all the 5 techniques for matching stage. So now we'll proceed with the decision stage tool, which is the QSPM, which stands for Quantitative Strategic Planning Matrix. It is a technique designed to determine the relative attractiveness of feasible alternative actions. So in this slide shows sample of a QSPM format. So for QSPM steps, first we have to make a list of the firm's key internal opportunities, threats, and internal strengths, weaknesses in the left column. So we have to list down all the key factors. Next is to assign weight to each key internal and external factors. And number 3 is examine the stage 2 matrices and identify alternative strategies that the organization could consider implementing. Number 4 is determine the attractiveness scores. And number 5, compute the total attractiveness scores. Last is to compute the sum total attractiveness score. In conclusion, the essence of strategy formulation is an assessment of whether an organization is doing the right things and how it can be more effective in what it does. A regular reappraisal of strategy helps management avoid complacency. Objectives in strategy should be consciously developed and coordinated and should not merely evolve out of day-to-day operation discussions. Tools should never be used to dictate the choice of strategies. I hope you learned something from the discussion. Thank you for listening.